Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Kimberly Cloud Show. I'm your host, Kimberly Cloud. I'm doing something new today. I'm streaming not only from you now, but my 7 different platforms. And I would like to introduce a positive special guest to the show. Can you go ahead and announce to the world who you are, your name, and where you're from?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kimberly, for this amazing opportunity to be on your show. My name is Dr. LaQuita Monley, and I am originally from small town, Mississippi. My hometown is called Macomb, Mississippi. But right now, the great state of Texas is where we've been residing for the past 5 years. And I'm just excited to be here today.
Can you go ahead and talk about, because we all want to know your past leading up into what you do now in your present?
Awesome. Yes. So, you know, I started out, I don't want to say as most people because we're so diverse and come from so many different backgrounds, but I'm a small town Mississippi girl, uh, raised in a very strict Christian home. My family is Free Will Baptist, and I'm the only girl and the oldest. And out of that, I was a little spoiled, just a little bit. Don't nobody tell my husband that because we've been in constant disagreement about it for about the past 30 years, whether or not I'm spoiled. So, coming out of small town Mississippi, great student, athlete. And I met my husband in high school. And as high school sweethearts, one day we came to a decision that caused us to become teenage parents. And out of that decision, and becoming teenage parents, we had a plethora of adult life decisions now that we had to make. At that time, my husband had already graduated high school, getting ready to go to college. I, however, was still in high school. And so, our families had to come together and decide what was going to happen, what would be the next steps. And so, Ben and I decided, okay, we are going to keep our child, and the Lord's going to have to give us some strength to figure out how to do life now, literally as teenagers. We're babies raising babies. And this was taking place in the 90s. So, that was a big thing in the 90s in the African
No
American
real
community.
health care, no real
Yes.
health care, no nothing for African Americans. So I
Yes.
get what you're saying.
Yes, absolutely. And by the grace of the Lord, from that time to this time, because I met my husband in 1992, we're currently in 2022, and by his grace, not only are we still together, but our marriage is thriving. Over 24 plus years of marriage, 30 years of relationship, and 5 children and 5 amazing grandchildren. And in my life's journey from teenage parent to rapidly then becoming, once we graduated, my husband made the decision while I was still in school to join the Army. Instead of completing college, he joined the
Tell
Army.
him thank you for your service. Like,
Yes,
seriously, thank you for being a military spouse because it's hard. I'm a veteran.
yes, it so exactly like he came in right after we found out I was pregnant. So he came in 94. We found out I was pregnant in 94. Our oldest was born in 95. And he went into the reserves. So because I still had lots of time left to graduate. I graduated high school in 96, and Fort Hood was our first duty station. And as you know, in the 90s, the military doesn't make a lot of money now, contrary to popular belief. I don't know where that lie came from, but we need to send it back to the pits of hell because we don't make enough money. Okay. So
Thank you.
I just need to speak that truth, right, as often as possible. So in the 90s, yeah, and my husband came in as enlisted. So in the 90s, as an E4 enlisted, married, we made a whopping $995 every 2 weeks. The Lord had to provide. He had to provide because, as in most young marriages and young military families, we multiplied like little rabbits. So we started out with one, and by the time he got to E5, E6, we had all 5 of our kids and still not a lot of money. But as I said, by his grace and some divine connections, allowing us to meet the right people that can speak life into our lives, that can mentor him in his career and help to change the trajectory of his career so that he can excel in his career, opening up opportunities for myself to continue my education. Um, God had a plan. Now, all of that sounds good and it briefs well, but there was a lot of road bumps in the way. There was a lot of things that took place that could have derailed us and could have caused us to make some decisions that would have resulted in us not being where we are today. But as I said, I thank God for the grace and the right people around us to help us make the right decisions. And so,
That will be my next question that I
yeah,
have to ask you. Do you believe that at a young age being pregnant, your family helped seal the cohesiveness between you and your husband's relationship by coming together and joining and becoming more Christ like just being living in a Christian like atmosphere for that child and for y'all, generation?
yeah. So I can honestly say that's a yes and no answer. And the reason that I say that is yes, we both came from very strong Christian backgrounds. We came from two parent homes, and so I fully realize that yes, I have the traditional '90s girl story that she got pregnant, but some of the things that were very different for me that some of our other sisters did not experience was just what you said. Our families came together, and that mattered. That mattered a lot. We were still left with the responsibility to raise our children, but
Understood.
because he came from a strong home and I came from a strong home, we were still kids. So we really did not want to hear what they had to say. Let's be clear. We were still
Yeah.
kids who thought we were adults and could make some good decisions. We did not want to hear what they had to say, but because of the love that our parents have for us and the level of respect that we had for them, even though we didn't want to hear it, we did listen and eventually followed some of the instructions, not all of them. I mean, not lie, not all of them, but some of them. And that did help. And the reason that I say no in some areas was because sometimes too much involvement, even with the best intentions, can result in some
I
negative things
agree.
taking place in a relationship. So him joining the army was of God, definitely of God. Our parents and grandparents, because we have longevity on both sides. My grandmothers are still alive, kicking and sassy, and they're chasing their great grandkids around these days. But moving us 500 miles away to Texas, our family was there to help grow and nurture us through my pregnancy, through the first year of my son's life to graduation. And then in 96, in May of 96, I graduated. By July of 96, we were in Texas and we had to figure it out. We had to grow up. Were they still calling to encourage us? Yes. But long distance wasn't free back then, so they couldn't call often. You know, yes, back then, daytime calls cost you 25 cents a minute. Nighttime calls cost you 10 cents a minute. And as you stated, Black people didn't have access to a lot of things that we have access to now. So you weren't making those frequent calls to complain. You had to grow up and mature and figure it out. And that's where I'm saying the Lord brought the right people around us to speak life into us and to help mold and give us some direction. And that played those people that we met in the 90s played a very major role into how our marriage was able to survive, to thrive, and why we are still together today.
You can see you've gotten wonderful advice because you know you sit somebody else in retrospect in a situation where they are around family and it's like an all-out tug of war. But despite the hiccups that happen or the bumps that happen in the road, they they and you all had to have listened, and y'all are great mediators because it's hard to have somebody else in your life, you know. And sometimes we regret it and sometimes we don't, but in your case, look at the outcome. The outcome is vast. You have a wonderful husband, wonderful family, wonderful grandkids, and you live in a great state. So I get what you're saying. How did you become a doctor?
So it is, again, by His grace, through the works that the Lord has allowed me to do through ministry and business, building great relationships with a lot of amazing people. A friend of mine has her doctorate, and the university that she's a part of has a program that uh, issues honorary doctorates to those who are deserving of it because of their civic service and the duties that they've done and the goals and life's achievements. And she nominated me for that honor. Actually, it was at the beginning of the year. And so
You
in
go,
June,
girl.
yeah, in June of this year, I had the pleasure of receiving an honorary doctorate from Trinity International University School of Ambassadors, right out of Atlanta, Georgia. So, yeah, did I get an opportunity to, as you know, over the years to continue my education and get a degree? I did, but this particular the PhD that I have is a PhD of philosophy in entrepreneurship and business. That was something that was given to me as an honor because of my life's work.
Wow, that is amazing, doctor. You deserve to be called doctor. You done went through so much. And what do you have? What advice before we talk about your future goals? Because you're a coach now. So, what is your advice to those entrepreneurs out there that has children that's between the ages of 17 and 18 that wants to go to college, wants to be in your footsteps? What kind of advice would you give them?
I would first ask them, who wants to go to college? Do you want your child to go to college, or does your child want to go to college? I don't knock college at all. College is great. I think that the biggest thing that I learned while attending college was that's the place where we get to kind of grow up and mature a little bit and practice at adulting while we're going to school to figure out what we want to be when we grow up. If it is something that you're pushing onto your child, I know for those of us that grew up in the 80s and the 90s, we were told if you don't go to college, you'll never be successful. You won't amount to nothing. You just get these penny any jobs and you'll be stuck. That's not true.
I
That's
agree.
not true. So if your child is not yet at a mature enough space to go to college and be successful, don't pressure them in that way. Maybe they want to go to a trade school. Maybe they're really good at being a mechanic, a cosmetologist, an esthetician. Maybe they want to be a plumber or a painter. Even some specific types of engineers. Automotive engineers make an amazing salary. Maybe they want to be a welder. There's so many industries that start out at six figures that are trades, and there is a severe gap in African Americans that are could be considered these master tradesmen and master skill sets, that as long as the earth is revolving around the sun, or the sun is revolving around the earth, on whichever way you want to believe, because we
I
do have
like that.
people
Yeah.
that believe the earth is flat. So however you believe, these skills are not going away, and there's a shortage of it, and it's an amazing income to be made. So perhaps maybe your child wants to do that, or even if your child is saying, what, I don't know what I want to be. In the African American community, we have a lot of opinions on the military. But I tell you one thing, the military will give you a steady income. It's going to try you. It's going to try you. But life tries us as African Americans, does it not? And we have this amazing resiliency where we always bounce back. Go in the military. Give them an opportunity to figure it out. They're going to figure out, and they'll be getting paid to figure it out. They can either say, hey, this is for me, or it's not for me. But while they're making that decision, they're still advancing in life skills. So don't knock it. Yes. Is it a fair community all the time? No. But where at in the world do African Americans receive the type of fairness and equity that we deserve? So don't discredit the military for something that's going to happen to them in corporate America and everywhere else. And they might not get equal pay. As a veteran, no matter what the E4 is, no matter what branch they're in, E4 pay is E4 pay. You can't take my pay from me. If you were colonel, no matter what branch you're in, that pay is that pay. You can't take my pay from me because of the color of my skin. You can't pay me less because I'm a woman. If I am whatever rank I am, you have to pay me that. And I get to learn life skills, job skills, and get an opportunity to travel while I figure out what I want to do with my life. I'm still getting a paycheck. So I would ask them those series of questions. And based off of those series of questions, then we will begin to dive deeper into what that young person wants to do and what we can do to help them map out a plan to reach what they have determined success to be right then and there.
You know, it's funny and well said, by the way, Doc. It's funny because the military has changed over the years, and you have grown with the military. So, my next question to you before I talk about your future is, what changes do you see beneficial? Like, because there's people out here that wants to get into the military. You know, if I had a choice, I would get back into the military. But what responsibilities do you think, good and bad, have the military done for us, whether black, whether white, whether Hispanic, in the arena of the army? What growth have you seen in
Oh,
that?
it's some amazing growth that has taken place. One of the things that used to annoy me greatly when my husband initially joined in the 90s was they did not have a lot of tolerance or patience for family. It was mission driven, mission oriented, soldier driven, soldier oriented. And the family had to get in if and when we could fit in. And people grow, organizations grow. And by the time that my husband retired in 2017, the transformation across the Army to include more services, more opportunities for spouses to grow and become a part of and involved in, it changed tremendously. And so, young people and families that are joining the military now, the things that they're getting didn't exist in the 90s for me. Some great services, opportunities to for the military to help to pay for your education, you know, even for the service members, to encourage the service members to get an education. There are programs in place now that not only is the Army paying for your education, but they're also giving you a laptop and a printer and all of the things you need in order to go to school successfully online. So, are there drawbacks? Absolutely. Are there a list of cons that could probably wrap around the earth as to why you might not want to do that? It is. But the list of pros can wrap around the earth twice. And so
Um,
the good does outweigh the bad. It's all in how you respond when the bad pops his head up.
yeah, and well said. Where I hate having to cut people off. Where are you going in the future?
So my future with my company, LaQuita Monley Solutions, where I see going in the future is expanding my organization to where we have multiple coaches that are coming on staff with us, multiple speakers that are coming on staff with us, so that we can show up more in our global community as well as across our nation with our services, with our service offerings to be more of a help, helping people to identify who they are and whose they are, and helping them to create these personal growth plans so they can create benchmarks and hit success as they determine what success is.
Okay. And how can the people reach you?
So I'm as they say, Googleable. So if they Google
You
me
are.
at LaQuita Monley, so my name is LaQuita. Last name Monley, Monley. If you Google me, all things LaQuita Monley will pop up. You can reach out to me via my website or my social media platforms. I'm extremely active on LinkedIn, but I am also active on Facebook and Instagram. But if you're wanting to reach out to me via social media, LinkedIn should be your first choice.
What is your, I have to ask one more question. I wish I can have you continue on the show, because this is a doctor that has traveled all over the world with her husband, because they're in church greatly and they speak on Christian values. So I want to know, based on your Christian values and you
Mm-hmm.
speaking all around the world,
Mm-hmm.
tell me about something from your book that you can help an audience member grow off of.
Yes. So there's a significant section in my book where we talk about the power of your network, the power of your network. And our network can determine our net worth. And I'm not talking about money.
Mhm.
Money can be included in that. When you look at your immediate association, those people that are closest to you, those people that have the ability to speak life or death to you and over you, where are they at in their life's journey? We have to check this, right? And within the body of Christ, we understand that like spirits attract. And that's not always in the world, you call it the power of attraction, right? So some things that are in you, negative aspects of you that you're wanting to change, people who possess that spirit will be attracted to you. People who possess the qualities and characteristics of who you want your future self to look like can sometimes come off as intimidating to you. We have to be able to discern the difference. Just because you feel really comfortable talking to Sally and Keisha and Tanisha, what does Sally, Keisha, and Tanisha bring to the table? Are they still stuck and complaining? Or can you see them moving forward in the direction of their desired results? And if you say, well, they're moving forward, but what is their desired result? Is it going to take them to some better places? Is it going to cause them to create their own tables and occupy spaces where people once said you ain't got no business being? Because if they are, them your girls and you need to ride. If they're not, then those people who we like to say, oh, you bougie, you think you better than that, and they don't understand how things are. Yes, they do. What is it my son says now? Something about he got to pull it up out the mud. I had to do that. I'm born and raised in the project.
Me too.
My beginning has nothing to do with my ending. I had to learn that those people were only offensive to me because they were offending the negative aspects of who I was. And what it was not offense, it was fear. When I learned the difference, then Keisha, Tanisha, and Sally, who were still doing the same thing that they were doing 5 years ago and yet complaining, they stopped being my go-to crew. Taniqua, Lisa, and Lori, oh, those my girls. Why? Because they're all moving forward in their careers. Are we all doing the same things? And those truly are my girls. Are we all doing the same things in life? No, but what we are trying to achieve in life is something greater for our families, building legacies, building wealth, building community resources to help our local community. They're doing those things. So we have a common goal. And that's how I'm able. So your network determines your net worth, because those people in your network are going to help you reach your goal. The first person to do that for me is an amazing woman, very different. Her name is Danielle. Danielle intimidated me like nobody's business, but she had what I wanted. Her husband and herself were retired military. They owned 3 businesses. When we met them, I met them at one of the businesses because we had just PCS, and she owned the boutique and the salon where I was getting my hair done. And I had a question. How did you do that? And she was saying, I'll answer that question, but you got to show me how you're going to do what I told you to do. And now my response to her was, bet. I can't pay you. She said, that's okay. Just meet me every day after the lunch rush. Bring your questions and I'll answer your questions. But you got to show up. So I showed up. The lady has never given me a quarter, nickel, penny, or a dime, but what she gave me was more valuable than that. She taught me how to make my own quarter, nickel, pennies, and dimes. And why my family as a representation of the Black community was so important, and that her and her husband grew me and my husband, that we are the most feared thing on the face of the planet, a powerful Black family. And that's why we got to make it work. We can work, and we have to raise our children to do the same. And it's biblical. The scripture tells us that we are to leave an inheritance for our children. What inheritance am I leaving them? I have to leave them with the ability. Exactly. I got to help them grow in their mindset. So not am I just going to give them everything that me and my husband have worked for, giving it to them and not equipping them to maintain it and make it grow. I've done them a disservice. So those are the things right there. Like the future, everyone's future should be progressively forward. And in this book, Redefining Success, 8 tools that I've used to develop a growth mindset, I spent a lot of time talking about the importance of your network. I use an example of a dartboard. Everywhere on the dartboard except for like that outer space ain't no value. But in those 3, 4, 5 rings in the dartboard, it has value. Well, the outer ring, the points are less, but the closer you get to the bullseye, those points have more value. That's how we should place people in our life. If our life was a dartboard, the people who, and there's very few darts that
I
can get
like
in that
it.
bullseye.
Like, yeah, that is so smart. Yeah, I never thought about that.
Like, man, let these
Wow.
other people occupy. Like, some of the people I grew up with, even people that I meet along the way, I'm not gonna not be friendly to anybody. Because the people who I've determined now you can't be in my inner space, that don't mean you don't need to be in my life at all. I have something in me that you need. So I can't completely disconnect from you unless you're trying to kill me. And I not in a physical sense. Like if you're trying your best to
Kill
keep
me
me
your
from progressing,
spirit.
then y'all need to cut you off.
Yeah,
But if
I
you're
get
just
it.
at an immature state and is some hope for you, I just can't place you in the bullseye. You need to go out there in them outer rings. And when you're ready to be that close, then I can bring you in. You may not ever be ready to be that close. You may not ever be able to bring them in. But your existence in their life and speaking life to them and encouraging them can one day help them reach their goals. So who's in the bullseye section of your life? Ain't much room there. 3, 4 darts is all you need. It's really all you need. You don't need a crowd, just 3, 4 good people.
To
And that relationship is reciprocal. Where you're
to
pouring into
piggyback
them and
off
they're
of
pouring
you,
into you.
to be piggyback off of what you're saying,
Yeah.
I look at it sort of in retrospect like a game of any game. In any game we play of life, it takes two players or more to win. But you make perfect sense when you talk about the dartboard. It, I've never looked at life like that, and it that y'all better be taking notes. Anything else like in the next 2 minutes you would like to say? You got the floor.
Yeah, I know. And I'll just take it back to your final question because it's a really good question. In that game of life that we're playing, a lot of times in the Black community, depending on where we came from economically, because generally where we come from economically has a lot to do with the mindset of the people in that space, right?
Yes.
And a lot of times, those of us that have come from impoverished and low income backgrounds, the mentality of the people says that, oh, you think you too good. You just gonna judge me? Only God can judge me. That's not true. That's the biggest lie ever told. If we're to be helpers one to another, and if I see my sister or my brother in a fault and I'm going to restore you, I gotta judge you. Because how else will I know you're in a fault? A fault is something's faulty, something's wrong, you're not doing something right. How else will I determine that if I have not made a judgment? But it says for me to go and to restore you in love. So that means not only am I able to recognize what you're doing wrong, but I got an answer. And I can tell you how to get out of it and how never to go back. That mentality, only God can judge me, is why a lot of our people are still stuck. God has empowered me to not just judge you, because the word judge doesn't have to be something that's negative. The word judge can definitely be positive. If we're in a lawsuit and the judgment is they owe you $5 million because they violated your trademark and your copyright, ain't you happy to have been judged? Yes. Give me my money. It's perspective. It's perspective. So in your network, you got to judge them. Yes. And find them worthy to be in a position to pour into your life like that. So your network definitely determines your network, and the way that we are able to determine that who needs to be that close to us is through our personal growth and development. So, I hope and pray that something that I've said on today has been a blessing to those that will hear this, and I look forward to perhaps even maybe coming back again and being on your
Oh
show.
yeah.
Thank you so much again for allowing me the opportunity to be on your platform and to speak to your audience.
Love. I wanted to thank you for being on my show, and I wanted to. We talked about how we can find you. We talked about our last sentence that I gave you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get off of here. I'm going to leave it at that. But I would love to have you back on because you have some inspirational, and I love listening to women that are more powerful than me, that more inspirational that have see things from different views. I love it. So you are one powerful woman. You're a hot tamale. So stay on the line. Thank you everyone for joining my show. It's been an honor. Thank you all. And you all have a nice day. Bye bye.